Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. My name is Tilly. I am the workshop coordinator for ASURE, aka the Affiliated Students for Undergraduate Research and Engagement. And we also have with us our fantastic peer mentor, Julissa.
Hi, guys.
And today we are going to talk about how to prepare your poster presentations.
Yeah, so as Tilly stated, I wanted to thank you all for joining us today. So we wanted to get started with just explaining the objectives for the afternoon. And so we wanted to make sure you guys understand what to expect at the undergrad symposium. And we for sure want to help you prepare your presentation. And we would like to answer any questions and want to practice communication skills with you guys as well. So the undergrad symposium is basically an annual symposium where a lot of people that have conducted research over the past year or two can explain the research, explain the process, explain their findings, and have an opportunity to public speak. And even though this time it's going to be virtual, it's still a really great opportunity to have those communication skills just kind of be filtered out during your undergrad. Like no one's grading you. It's all just mainly for fun. And it's open to all the departments. So, you know, social sciences, arts and humanities, etc. And yeah, so it's happening on May 27th.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Jules. So out of all the presentation formats, we are going to talk about posters today, which are a very special format in research. I think they're kind of like the flash fiction of research presentations, and that poses a lot of really interesting presentations to listen to, but also poses some interesting challenges. And we're going to talk about how to make the best of these 3 to 5 minutes that you have. So just to make sure everybody is really clear on what poster presentations are going to look like this year, by May 18th, I think it is, we'll go over that due date at the end of this presentation as well, so keep that in mind. You need to have uploaded a video in MP4 format that is 3 to 5 minutes long. That video should contain an image of your poster and you and your voice explaining what your poster is about, your research, and we're going to go over all the parts to include in that. Live engagement is optional. You all should have already filled out your symposium confirmation forms where you submitted your abstracts and you said, yes, I want to participate in this live engagement session and talk to other people about my research live or not. And whether you chose to opt into that live engagement option today, we are going to talk about how to handle live engagement at conferences and asking and answering questions and things like that and what that's going to look like. And so I'm very excited to talk about posters, and they're one of my favorite research presentation formats. So at the Undergraduate Research Symposium, like I said, you need to upload an MP4 video, and it needs to be no larger than 100 megabytes, MB. Whatever MB stands for, it can't be larger than 100 of them. You also need to upload a PDF of your poster, just the image of your poster. What happens to the PDF of your poster and your abstract and other materials that you upload is you agree that the university has permission to upload your research and your work into kind of a corpus of undergraduate research that's been created called Scholars Bank at the University of Oregon. And so it's stored in Scholars Bank. If you Google University of Oregon, Scholars Bank Undergraduate Research Symposium, you can see all this fantastic undergraduate work from previous years. So that's a great place where you can refer employers or things like that if they want to take a look at what you've done, learn about your research. You can record your video on Zoom, or you can record a voiceover in PowerPoint and turn it into a video. There are instructions about how to do that on the Undergraduate Research Symposium website. However, these are not like your only 2 options. These are some recommended options. But if you are super facile with videos and voiceovers, go for it. Use another software. I like to use iMovie sometimes when I'm making posters and voiceovers, and that's really helpful for me. If you decided to participate in the live discussion panel, that's going to happen on May 26th or 27th. And while the schedule is being solidified, you won't know exactly when you're presenting on those days, but you'll know closer to the symposium. If you opted into that live engagement option, you're going to be with 6 to 8 fellow presenters, people who are also presenting posters, and your fellow presenters' research will be related to your research in some way. It will either be the research that's in your discipline, it'll be the same discipline, or there'll be a common theme. Those sessions will be moderated by faculty, and they'll also serve as timekeepers and things like that. So they facilitate when questions are asked, and then they themselves might ask questions. And your faculty mentors can absolutely attend. So let me also say a bit about how the Undergraduate Research Symposium will happen and be viewed this year. It's going to be primarily on YouTube. And so this is kind of similar to how we did it last year. Last year, if you went on the Undergraduate Research Symposium channel, there were live streams of the live sessions that were going on, and there were also playlists where people's pre-recorded poster presentations can be viewed. And so that's an idea of where your research is going to end up on the day of the Undergraduate Research Symposium. And so that's the presentation structure. You can also find templates and other information at the Undergraduate Research Symposium website, and we're going to talk through templates and how to make a poster. So when you first start to think about making a poster, of course, you need to include, bare minimum, the title of your research, of course, your name. If you're presenting with other undergraduates, you need to put their names and the names of your faculty mentors. And you also need your university affiliation. So for most of you folks, that's going to be the University of Oregon, but also take note if you're collaborating with a faculty member that's from another institution, you'll want to note that in your poster. If you received any funding for your research, of course you want to note that too. Some of you may have received funding from the UO or external sources, and make sure to acknowledge that. And besides the necessary info, now we're going to dive into the larger structure and anatomy of a poster. So usually you put the necessary info, all that obligatory info, in a header at the top of the poster. In addition to the header, your poster structure will kind of mirror the structure of your abstract. So you've all written abstracts in order to confirm your registration to get a Graduate Research Symposium. So you want to think about the same structure that you wrote your abstract in when you want to make your poster. Of course, you're going to need an introduction, which is kind of like your lit review. Give your viewer a toolbox. What do they need to understand this presentation that you're about to give? You're also going to need to state your research question. Some people prefer to put their research question directly on the poster. I prefer to give it a separate box so it's super clear to the person watching what this study is about, but you don't have to. You can just say it in your voiceover, and we're going to talk about most effective strategies to make the most of that voiceover. Of course, you're also going to want to include methods. What did you do for your research? What were your results of the research? And if you're using figures and graphs and pictures, you want to thoroughly explain those figures, graphs, and pictures. And we're going to talk about that too. And of course, your results and discussion. What did you find? And what does it mean? So in the poster presentation format, your broader significance is really important because it's what the reader is most going to remember in this short 3 to 5 minute flash fiction of a research. And so when you're thinking about crafting your broader significance and conclusions, you don't just want to take the 100-foot view, you want to take the 10,000-foot view about your research. Why is this research important? Why did you want to do it in the first place? What does it mean for the listener's daily life? What does it mean for the audience? What does it mean for the field in general? You want to think really, really big. And you also want to include a section for your acknowledgements and funding sources, of course. And some people choose to add a works cited. I like to add a works cited so people understand what literature I'm referencing. This is especially useful if people in your field are viewing your poster, so they can kind of understand what literature you're already building off of and where you're going with your research. So that's the structure of the physical poster. And I want to show you guys some examples of what the poster might look like. So the poster at the Undergraduate Research Symposium, this is a pretty typical research academic poster. And it has these very clear sections: introduction, methods, results, conclusions, etc. And we're going to talk about ways that you can adapt this format to make it more suitable to your presentation. For example, if you're presenting an architecture image. And so a poster is basically just one still image that encapsulates your research project. You can break it down like this and make a PowerPoint slide that has all of these components, or you can show a still image of your creative work and things like that. We're going to talk about that later on. But here's a breakdown of a traditional academic poster. You've got your introduction, and the introduction does not have to be super long. This is not like a lit review for your thesis project. And with the introduction, I like to use bullet points, and I like to use, it's kind of like a roadmap for your voiceover. So you want to have your introduction, methods, data analysis all throughout, like a roadmap for what you're going to talk about, so the reader doesn't get lost. So bare minimum bullet points. And you see here that one thing I like about this example is that the colors in this poster are really easy to navigate, and it's very easy to read. And so when you're thinking about color schemes and things like that, make sure to go content over style. People are gonna wanna read your poster and not necessarily like look at all of the colors of it. So make it legible. And so most people choose to make their posters by taking one PowerPoint slide and making a bunch of text boxes and then doing some fancy formatting with the text boxes. You're also free to use other softwares if that's what you're more used to, Adobe softwares and things like that. As long as you can turn it into a PDF and make a voiceover with it, you go for it. But if you don't want to make your own template straight off the bat, the Undergraduate Research Symposium website has 2 templates for you to work off of. By no means do you have to stick to them, but it gives you all of these text boxes are already pre-made, which is really nice. So this is one of the templates that's offered to you, and you see it has all of these boxes already staked out for you. So that's one option. Here's the second option for you to use and work off of if you choose to do that, and that's on the Undergraduate Research Symposium website. So if you guys are interested in using those, go ahead and check that out. So when you're crafting your poster, after you've gotten your template and you've gotten things worked out, fewer words is better, like I said, and you might want to consider highlighting your research question. And when you're thinking about what do I need to write down versus what do I need to say, write down things that people need to read to understand. An example of this is the research question. Research questions and titles are often really jargony. So you want to take some time in your voiceover to break those things down, but in your poster, you want to write them down. So the research question, you may need to read, people might need to read it multiple times to understand it, but in your voiceover, I like to, when I'm presenting, not only read the research question from my poster, from my oral presentation, but I also like to restate my research question in another way. So people have not only heard it twice, but they've heard it in 2 different ways. And so that's what your voiceover is doing in contrast to the physical poster. It's bringing your poster to life. And so you are more important than your poster. Your voiceover is much more important than your poster. And because of that, you shouldn't be afraid of leaving blank space on your poster, and it can be concise and just enough to get that information across, so you are the main show. And so with your voiceover, it's hard because you have a limited amount of time. 3 to 5 minutes is not a lot of time. So you want to be very strategic about what you want to cover. And one of the hard things about making a voiceover is in this period of time is that maybe you've done a lot to get the results that you have, and explaining methods can be really, really difficult. And so when you're explaining methods, you want to go super big picture, but detailed enough that people understand it. And if possible, give a visual of what methods might have looked like. If you had worked with human subjects, for example, and people heard speech or they saw a picture and they responded to it on a computer, show what the picture might have looked like, or in your voiceover, consider playing the stimuli that subjects heard. Or if you did a physical science experiment and you're working with mice or molecules or whatever it is, maybe go through a kind of flow chart of what your process is with your research materials. And when you do graphs for your poster, you want to make the axes and titles extremely clear. So you want them to be very, very legible. Clearly label your axes so that a general audience can read them. And when you're doing your voiceover, you want to explain the graphs like you would explain them to a kid, because you're talking to someone who's not a child, but they're uninformed about what you're doing. They are educated people, but they are uninformed. And you've had a lot of time to think about this research, but how would you explain it to someone if they were just hearing it for the first time? So in your graphs, you want to say, this is what the x-axis means, this is what the y-axis means, and what does up or down mean in your graphs? And why is that related to your results? If you're an architecture student, for example, and you're using more of a still image, you want to explain, if you've included diagrams, what symbols and diagrams mean, so that's accessible to a larger audience. And when you're going to actually record your voiceover, so you don't have to do it perfectly, read a script maybe 5 minutes, you can use a software to edit it if needed. There is I provided a link on this slide to all the software that the University of Oregon offers. And so I want to say with your voiceover, you can do that in 2 ways. You can either write out bullet points that you're going to cover and then just kind of talk about those bullet points and go a little freestyle in your voiceover, or you can write out a script. And that's a matter of preference. I prefer to write out a script and read the script and take what I need from the script. And then I like to edit the voiceover in a speech processing software called PROT, which is what linguistics folks use to do research a lot. If you're not familiar with PROT, P-R-A-A-T, it's very, very easy to use if you just Google it and download it, if that's what you choose to edit your voiceover with. So I want to talk about an example first of a really great poster. This is from Addie Fecker. She was the lead coordinator for ASURE, I believe, last year, and this poster actually won an award at the Undergraduate Research Symposium. And so look at this poster, and it would be great if you guys could tell me what you like about this poster, if you can identify the parts about it that are really super clear, and parts that can be improved if you see any, because this is a really, really great poster. So take a look at it, read through it, and let me know if you can see the parts and if something can be improved and what you like about it. I'll give you guys a minute. Okay. If you guys have finished reading through the poster, feel free to put your ideas in the chat or just shout them out. If not, I can give you guys another minute. And if you guys are just not feeling talking on Zoom today, that is okay, and I can just talk through it. I know that happens sometimes.
I think they did a really good job of consolidating their research to make it super consumable for someone who's never seen it.
Yeah, that's an awesome point, Honor. This is Addie has done an excellent job of making something that can be very obscure and inaccessible to someone who doesn't have a physical science background. And she's broken it down into something that's very, very easy to understand. And I see in the chat, Alma says the chart explaining different behaviors is really easy to understand. Yeah, it is really, really easy to understand. So Addie has really harnessed here the power of visuals. And her graphs are not only super easy to understand, they give you most of the picture. You don't have to kind of try to parse out what these graphs mean. Her labeling is really, really clear. And you can see that she's given a lot of thought into what colors are going to be not only look good, but what colors are going to be easy for people to read and tease apart here. Yeah, I love that. Any other thoughts about this poster? Whoop. Lost my slide here. There we go. Yeah, the conclusions are super, super prominent. And when you're doing a poster, it can be kind of easy to get lost in the methods and what you did. But look at the light at the end of the tunnel when you're crafting your poster and your voiceover, because the conclusions need to be front and center. That's an awesome point, Alma. And they're super easy to understand. Notice how Addie here, she hasn't used scientific jargon. She's used real human language to describe what happened in her study. Yeah, awesome job, guys. Any other thoughts? Yes, the differences here in the brain stimulation and the social stimulation only. Exactly. One thing I love about Addie's poster is immediately you know that she's working with zebrafish. And so you see the pictures of the fish here. This is a great example of even if you weren't presenting stimuli to subjects or things like that, you can clearly see what she did. And these graphs here, exactly like this person mentioned in the chat, they really tell the story about her study. And so she's really used those very strategically. These graphs are not put in there just to show that like she's doing science and she has graphs. The graphs tell the picture, tell the story. Yeah, that's an awesome point. I'm reading at the chat here. Yes, exactly, Alma. Alma's got it. The future directions are absolutely the 10,000 foot view. Addie has done a lot of thinking about what her research means and why it's important. Absolutely. And the future directions, when you go to write them, you might be like, oh, I'm not sure, but that's okay. Come back to it. You know, you guys have some time. So I encourage you to start thinking about these things now and start making your posters now because that deadline is coming up. Yeah, you guys are superstars. Anything else? Let's see. And I do want to mention that it is totally fine that she's not included works cited on the poster. You don't have to, you're not required to. And if you want to, that's fine. But if you find that there's not room or that's not a productive thing for you to do, you don't have to. But you can see here that Addie has acknowledged her funding sources, and she has many here at the bottom, and that's awesome. Yeah. Any other thoughts about this poster? Yeah, you guys are superstars. You did an awesome job breaking down this poster. Another thing I love about this poster is usually when you encounter a physical science poster, the title is like really hard to understand and you have no idea what this person is going to talk about until they start talking about it. But you totally understand what this is about based on Addie's title. And she has used very light colors here. They're not like dark, heavy colors. She's used light colors here, so you can read it very easily. And she's not afraid of negative space. In fact, I think the negative space really works to her advantage here because it makes it easier for you to read. And she's stripped down her text to the only thing that she needs to explain it. And that makes it much easier to read as well. Awesome job, you guys. And so I also want to show that Addie's model, she has perfected the model, but that's not the only way to create a poster at conferences or at the Undergraduate Research Symposium. So if you are doing a work that does not fit with this traditional text box structure, that is fine. So here are some examples of how folks have used posters in other ways. And you can see that these posters are still super clear and super legible. And I like this poster here because it's very, very easy to read. And it gives you a lot of these images to guide you through the research. And I'm sure that this presenter is putting a lot of information in their voiceover. And so you've kind of got this balance here of what you want to include in the poster versus what you want to include in the voiceover. And so make sure that when you're crafting your poster and your voiceover, that if you've left things out of the poster, put it in the voiceover and vice versa. Yeah. Awesome job, guys. And so I want to take a quick moment to talk about how to write the best voiceover and break down jargon for people and make your posters understandable to a general audience. This is a title of an article that was recently in the New York Times. Are you confused by scientific jargon? So are scientists. And scientific papers containing specialized terminology or jargon are less likely to be cited by other scientists. So it is not just you that is confused by scientific jargon. These are grown-up adult scientists with PhDs, and they are confused by jargon too. And so not using jargon and explaining your research, using small words to explain big ideas is something that's not only going to impress the general population, the non-specialized audience, but it's also going to impress experts in your field. And because breaking that down is going to impress everyone, you want to pay attention to two things in your poster and in your voiceover. First, breaking down jargon, like I said. Is there a word or a phrase that someone who has not studied your area would not know what that means? See if you can substitute out that phrase or word for something else. And you should also be super clear in your voiceover when you're switching from one section to another. And this is especially helpful because conference attendees, they go to a lot of posters and a lot of presentations, and especially on Zoom and on YouTube these days, it can be kind of easy to get lost in it all. And so having really clear transitions about where you are in your research discussion is super important. And so now that we've talked about posters and voiceovers and things like that, I want to talk about how to answer questions at a conference. The Undergraduate Research Symposium is a super friendly venue, and people are there to support you and learn about the fantastic work that you've done. So I don't think you're going to get hardball questions. But it's important to understand how to answer questions. And so what I like to do, and what I've noticed is the most effective strategy that I've seen other researchers do, is to answer questions in a sandwich format. So when you get a question, first start with an intro statement, like, what a great question. That's a really interesting thought. And this is good not only because it kind of establishes a friendly relationship with this person who's asking a question, but also because it gives you some time to think about your answer. And you can even kind of say, let me think about that for a second if you need to do that. That's absolutely fine. And then you want to go into the meat of the sandwich, which is actually answering the question. The broad types of questions that you're going to get that I've seen are clarification questions. If people are unclear about something, they don't understand what you've done, they're a little confused about your methods, about what led you to do this. So clarification questions, think about what people might get confused by and how you might answer those questions. Another category of questions you might get is about other literature or other studies or other kind of fields that are related to your research. And you may know about that field that someone has asked about, or you may not. And if you don't know about it, that's totally fine. You can say, I'm not familiar with that literature, but that's a really interesting thought. Or you've really given me something to think about. That's really interesting. So that's okay to not know. But if you do know, you can talk about that a little bit with that person. Another category of questions I see, especially if you have methodological studies, like social science studies, like psychology, linguistics, biology, chemistry, is what would happen if? what would happen if you tweaked the design of your study in a specific way? For example, I'm a linguistics major, so my examples I'm familiar with are from linguistics research. What if you used a different language in this study? Or what if you used a population that spoke a different language? Do you think that your results would change? Or do you think that that's something that's worthwhile investigating in the future? So those what would happen if questions. So start thinking about, are there pieces of my study that could be changed or subbed out in a productive way? And what might that mean for my research? And I think the number one category of questions I see that at the Undergraduate Research Symposium especially is the broader significance, taking the 10,000-foot view. What does this mean for my daily life? For example, if you're doing a study about how to teach students best, how they learn best in the classroom, someone might ask, how can I implement this in my classroom? How can I implement this as a student? You need to be prepared to answer those questions. So taking the 10,000-foot view and start thinking about it now, because those answers can take some time to develop because it's this really big picture thinking. And then after you have addressed the meat of the sandwich and answered the question, and with thanking the person for the question, again, this establishes a more friendly relationship with the audience. Or you can emphasize something about your study that you think is important for a take-home message from that question, or you can do both, do a future direction statement and a thank you. And if someone asks you about numbers or something that you don't know about, like statistics, sample size, things like that, you can say, I don't have those numbers off the top of my head, and that's fine too. So that's a strategy for answering some questions. And I also want to give a quick word about acknowledgements and how to acknowledge people that you've worked with for your research. So research is absolutely a team sport, and presenting at a conference, you're presenting as a team member. Even if you're the only undergraduate researcher that is involved in the research, you still have a team, and that's your faculty mentor. And so make sure that your faculty mentor is on the poster, and you can even acknowledge them in your acknowledgement section if you'd like. Or if you are working on a team of undergraduates, you can recognize your co-presenters at the top of the poster. Again, all co-presenters' name should be on there. And I want to talk about quickly how to craft a poster voiceover if you're working on a team. One person can do it. And so there's only one person's voice throughout the recording. Or last year I presented with a team of undergraduate research assistants in my linguistics lab, and we actually unexpectedly won an award for our poster. But what we did in our poster recording was that we each recorded a section of the poster. So someone did intro, someone did methods, so on and so forth. And then we spliced our voices together using a software that one of us had and was good with computers. And we put all our voices together on top of our poster image. And so that's absolutely an option for you if you are working on a team. And if you're working alone or if you're presenting on behalf of your team members, just make sure to remember that after you're done presenting, you not only want the audience to think, this person was really good at explaining their research, you also want them to think, I would want to work with this person. They're very nice and they're very humble, and humility is professional, and it shows you're a team player, and research is a team sport. And these are some other resources for you guys. I will drop them in the chat. Let's see, there they, nope, that's not it. I will drop them in the chat after I have done screen sharing that you guys can check out, and that could be helpful for you when you're crafting your presentation. And so I want to make sure that you guys understand the timeline for your poster presentations. You need to have everything finished and uploaded by May 18th. I think you guys should have received a link already for you to upload your poster presentations by May 18th. Make sure to do that. And once you've uploaded your stuff by May 18th, you can just sit back and wait for the event and enjoy the event. But make sure to get your stuff in by May 18th. and reach out to us, to ASURE or the folks at CURE and UROP if you need help with anything. And Jules is going to talk about some other resources for you guys. We have one final workshop this term. ASURE is hosting one final workshop. It is for final touches. We're going to touch on all presentation formats, and we will absolutely touch on posters. So if you want to talk about how to do final touches for your posters and how to perfect your presentation before that due date, come to our workshop, and that link is also on the Undergraduate Research Symposium website. And I'm going to turn it over to Jules to talk about resources and folks you can go to with questions.
Yeah, sorry about that. My cat was having a hairball, I think. Thank you, Tilly. That was amazing. And I loved all of your participation in the presentation. And that was awesome, guys. Round of applause to you all. I know it's difficult. It's Friday. Zoom fatigue is real. So thank you for sticking with us. And
Yes,
I'm just going to wrap up the presentation by explaining that we have open hours until I think week 10. And this is just a virtual open hours where you could come and ask us questions about anything research related, emails related, resume related, symposium related. And so we've got CURE and ASURE on the poster right here.
Yes.
So if you all aren't aware, ASURE is basically just here to help everyone, all the undergrads, get involved in research if they wanted to. Also to create research related posters, presentations, etc. And so we're that platform for you all to get familiar with those kinds of conversations revolving research. Also, we could help you get into a lab and whatnot. And our email's right there, and our Instagram is at UO-ASURE, so pretty catchy, pretty simple. Give us a follow, please. Yeah, next slide, Tilly. And so this last bit are just research opportunities for you all. That like for the UO Libraries website has the collection of like data services that you could go and like do skills workshops. CURE also has fellowships as well as UROP and ours.
Yeah, and I want to say about the data science skills workshops, I've been getting a lot of questions in workshops about whether you need to code and things like that during the pandemic times with remote research and everything. And most research requires some level of coding knowledge. You don't have to start out knowing how to code. I definitely didn't. But it's a good way to get a foothold going to these library workshops. I signed up for 2 of them, and they're for absolute beginners. So if you're looking to get involved in research that requires some coding and you don't know where to start there. In these CURE and UROP fellowships and the ARS programs, they are happening this summer and they happen every summer. So even if you didn't apply to them this summer, start thinking about applying to them next summer because you all are involved in research. You're participating at the Undergraduate Research Symposium. That's impressive. That's very impressive, and it's fantastic. And so in case you guys didn't know, what fellowships are is you get paid to participate in research that a professor already has going. That's the ARS program. Or you get paid to conduct your own independent research. This is for the CURE and UROP fellowships. There are a bunch of them where you get paid to conduct your independent research. I got the VPRI fellowship from UROP, and it was an absolutely fantastic experience. So consider applying for those. Start thinking about it next summer because it's an awesome experience. And I always like to end with a cartoon, and Jules and I would love to take you guys' questions if you have any questions or things you want to discuss about posters or the symposium.
Will this recording be available somewhere for us to watch to reference it?
Great question, Ed. It absolutely will. All of our workshops, including this one, are posted on the Undergraduate Research Symposium YouTube channel, which is you can find on the website. And this one will be uploaded, I'm thinking, within the next few days. Awesome question. Thanks. Any other questions you guys have?
I was wondering, so like beside like for the Zoom recording, like let's say we decide to record our poster presentation on Zoom,
Mhm.
would that like show up with like our like faces, or does it not work that way? I've never done it before.
This is a great question, and it's something that I experimented with last year. You can absolutely show your face. First of all, that's not a problem. But if you don't want to show your face, I think that you can just turn off your camera, and it won't show you, and you can kind of tuck that window to the side. Yeah, but there's a guide on the Undergraduate Research Symposium website that gives much better instructions than I did, likely, but that's I think a method that you can use. Awesome question.
Okay, thank you. I had one more question, if that's okay.
Yeah.
I was wondering if we don't participate in the live session, are we gonna field any questions, or is that only for people in the live session?
That's a good question. If you're not participating in the live session, you won't get any live questions, is my understanding. So your research will still absolutely be proudly on display on the Undergraduate Symposium YouTube channel and stored in Scholars Bank, but you won't get any live questions if you're not participating in the live engagement sessions. Yeah, that's a great question. Any other questions you guys have? Okay. Well, if you guys do not have any other questions, I'm going to end it here. Thank you guys so much for coming. Is there a question in the chat? Let me look really quick. Yes, there will be, so last year's presentations are, I believe, still on the Undergraduate Symposium YouTube channel. I love that question, Alma, because that's where you can go to kind of see what other folks did last year. And you can also go on the Undergraduate Research Symposium website and you can see who won awards last year. You can go to their presentations. The goal is not necessarily to win awards, the goal is just to participate, but if you win awards, that's great. But the point of going to see those is what do the symposium folks consider to be kind of the model about how to do this? And so go to the YouTube, that's an awesome question, that's an awesome resource, and check out those videos and check out last year's winners. Yes, any other questions? Okay, well, thank you guys so much for coming. I hope to see you at the Undergraduate Research Symposium, and I can't wait to see your work. And make sure to stop by ASURE open hours to talk to Jules or other peer mentors or the CURE and UROP folks. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, bye-bye.